In the grand tradition of galactic conquest, nobody did it quite like the Blorban Empire. Well, that's what they told themselves anyway. For 3 centuries, these purple-skinned, tentacle-faced beings had carved out a reputation as the galaxy's most efficient conquerors. Not through superior firepower, mind you. Not through brilliant tactical genius. No, the Blorbans had discovered something far more elegant, pure, unadulterated agony. Commander Glixnorp stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable victory admiring his reflection in the polished chrome surfaces. His 4 eye stalks swiveled independently as he surveyed his domain, each one catching the light from his freshly polished pain-inducing gauntlets. The ship's name wasn't arrogance, he assured himself. It was simply accurate marketing. Status report, Lieutenant Blurpington. Glixnorp commanded, his voice carrying that special blend of smugness that only comes from never having lost a battle. Sir, our agony amplification arrays are operating at peak efficiency, Blurpington replied, his own eye stalks quivering with excitement. Pain projection cannons are fully charged, and our suffering saturation bombs are primed for deployment. Glixnorp's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Shit. The Blorban military doctrine was beautifully simple. Why waste time and resources on actual warfare when you could just make your enemies hurt so badly they'd surrender immediately? It had worked flawlessly on the crystalline Vortaxians, who folded after exactly 2.3 seconds of mild discomfort. The gas-based nebuloids had surrendered before the pain rays even reached them, apparently deciding that the anticipation alone was too much to bear. Excellent, Glixnorp purred, his confidence levels reaching dangerously astronomical heights. And our next target? A small blue-green planet in the outer rim, sir. 3rd planet from a yellow star. The inhabitants call it Earth. Glixnorp's eye stalks performed what could generously be called a dramatic flourish. Earth. How wonderfully primitive sounding. Intelligence reports. Standard carbon-based bipeds, sir. No advanced weaponry detected. No energy shields. No pain resistance technology whatsoever. Blurpington paused for effect. This should be our easiest conquest yet. The bridge crew erupted in what passed for Blorban laughter, a sound remarkably similar to a garbage disposal having an existential crisis. Glixnorp basked in the moment, already composing his victory report in his head. Set course for Earth, he declared with theatrical grandeur. Time to add another species to our pain compliance database. I predict total surrender within, let's be generous, 30 seconds of initial contact. If only Glixnorp knew that in approximately 6 hours he would be questioning every life choice that had led him to this moment. The inevitable victory descended through Earth's atmosphere with all the subtlety of a cosmic freight train having a midlife crisis. Glixnorp had chosen downtown Chicago for their landing site, reasoning that a major population center would provide maximum witnesses to their inevitable triumph. The ship touched down in Grant Park with a thunderous crash that shattered windows for 3 blocks and sent hot dog vendors scrambling for cover. Perfect landing, sir, Lieutenant Blurpington announced, though several eye stalks were still spinning from the impact. Target acquisition systems are locked onto multiple human subjects. Glixnorp straightened his pain gauntlets and activated the ship's external speakers. Attention, primitive Earth creatures. I am Commander Glixnorp of the Blorban Empire. You will surrender immediately or face unimaginable torment. A small crowd had gathered around the smoking crater that used to be a perfectly nice patch of grass. Among them stood Jake Morrison, a construction worker who'd been enjoying his lunch break when aliens decided to redecorate the park. Jake took another bite of his sandwich and squinted up at the gleaming ship. Ah, Jake said to nobody in particular, that's new. Deploy agony rays. Glixnorp commanded. Setting moderate suffering. The ship's pain cannons hummed to life, bathing the crowd in waves of concentrated agony that should have dropped them instantly. Glixnorp leaned forward eagerly, waiting for the screaming to begin. Jake paused mid-chew and looked mildly annoyed. "Oh," he said flatly. "That kinda stings." Glixnorp's 4 eye stalks blinked in rapid succession. "Excuse me?" "I said it stings," Jake repeated, still chewing. like when you accidentally grab a hot pan handle. You guys got something stronger, or is this it? Dr. Maya Blackwood, who'd been walking through the park on her way to the Natural History Museum, approached the group with scientific curiosity. The pain rays were hitting her full force, but she seemed more interested than distressed. "Are you folks okay?" she asked the other humans, pulling out her phone to record the phenomenon. "This is fascinating. Some kind of directed energy field?" "I'm fine," said an elderly man feeding pigeons, who hadn't even looked up from his newspaper. "Though it's giving me a bit of a headache. Nothing compared to my sciatica, though." On the bridge, chaos was erupting. "Sir!" Blurpington shrieked, his voice cracking like a teenager's. "The biological readings are impossible. Their neural pain receptors are registering the stimuli, but their behavioral responses are completely inconsistent with established xenobiological models. Increase power to maximum." Glixnorp bellowed, his confident demeanor developing its first hairline cracks. The pain rays intensified, now glowing visible red as they hammered the humans with enough concentrated suffering to make a Vortaxian explode. Jake finished his sandwich and brushed the crumbs off his work shirt. "There we go," he said approvingly. "Now it feels like a decent sunburn." "Thanks." Dr. Blackwood was practically vibrating with excitement. "The electromagnetic spectrum readings are off the charts. Are you trying to communicate through pain induction? Because if so, you might want to recalibrate for human physiology." Glixnorp's mandibles began clicking uncontrollably. This wasn't in any of their conquest manuals. Maximum power. Glixnorp screamed, his voice hitting octaves that shouldn't exist in civilized conversation. "Overload the pain matrices. Burn out the suffering circuits if you have to." The inevitable victory began glowing like a purple Christmas tree having a seizure. Energy readings spiked so high that nearby car alarms started going off in sympathy. The pain rays were now pumping out enough concentrated agony to theoretically liquefy a small moon. Jake Morrison looked up from where he'd been checking his phone. "Okay, seriously," he said with the tone of a man whose patience was wearing thin. "Could you stop that? I'm trying to eat lunch here, and this is getting annoying." A woman in a business suit who'd been walking her dog paused to adjust her earbuds. "Yeah, it's really interfering with my podcast," she added helpfully. "Also, your ship is blocking the bike path." On the bridge, Lieutenant Blurpington was having what could charitably be called a complete nervous breakdown. "Sir, the humans are registering pain levels that should cause immediate cardiac arrest, but their stress hormones are barely elevated. One of them just asked if we have a parking permit." "Impossible." Glixnorp snarled, though his confidence was now leaking faster than a punctured spaceship. "Switch to frequency Gamma 7. Target their nerve clusters directly." The pain rays shifted to a sickly green color, now specifically designed to trigger every pain receptor in the human nervous system simultaneously. It was the kind of weapon that made hardened Blorban soldiers weep just thinking about it. An elderly woman walking her poodle stopped to pat the dog's head. "Oh, that's much better," she said pleasantly. "Reminds me of my heating pad at home. Very soothing." That's when the Channel 7 news van screeched to a halt at the edge of the park. Lisa Hartwell, veteran reporter and owner of the most indestructible hair in local journalism, leapt out with her camera crew trailing behind. "This is Lisa Hartwell with Channel 7 News," she announced, striding directly into the path of the pain rays without missing a beat. "We're here at Grant Park where what appears to be an alien spacecraft has landed and is currently well. I'm not entirely sure what they're doing." The pain rays hit her full force. Lisa's expression didn't change, though she did adjust her blazer slightly. "I'm standing in what witnesses describe as some kind of energy field," she continued, turning to Jake, who was still finishing his lunch. "Sir, can you describe what you're experiencing?" Jake considered this seriously. "Well, it's like a really bad sunburn mixed with stepping on a Lego barefoot. But you know, the kind of Lego that's been sitting in the sun all day. Not the worst thing that's happened to me today, honestly." "Fascinating," Lisa said, then turned to Dr. Blackwood. "And you, ma'am, "Oh, this is wonderful," Dr. Blackwood exclaimed, her scientific enthusiasm completely undampened by the waves of theoretical agony washing over her. "It's like being in a very aggressive tanning bed. I'm getting readings on my phone that suggest these energy patterns are similar to deep tissue massage therapy, but with more zesty undertones." On the bridge, chaos reigned supreme. Blurpington was now openly weeping, his eye stalks drooping like wilted flowers. "Sir, I've tried 17 different pain frequencies. Delta 9 made one of them yawn. Theta 12 caused a small child to ask if we were giving out free warmth. What about the neural agony cascade?" Glixnorp demanded, his voice cracking like a pubescent Blorban. "Deployed, sir." The target population described it as tingly and asked if we sold home units. Back in the park, the crowd was actually growing. Word had spread on social media about the free alien heat therapy, and people were arriving with lawn chairs and picnic blankets. Someone had set up a hot dog cart just outside the pain ray perimeter and was doing booming business. Lisa Hartwell, still being subjected to enough concentrated suffering to traumatize a small army, was now conducting a full interview segment. "So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this alien torture experience?" "Maybe a 4? Jake replied thoughtfully. 5 if you count the weird tingling in my left foot. But honestly, I've had worse days at the construction site. At least these aliens aren't making me work in the rain." The camera panned to show the growing crowd of humans, and all casually enduring what should have been civilization-ending levels of pain while discussing weekend plans and comparing the experience to various household appliances. Glixnorp stared at the view screen in horror. His foolproof conquest method was being rated like a mediocre spa treatment. That's when Commander Glixnorp finally snapped. "This is impossible," he shrieked, his eye stalks spinning in completely different directions like a broken compass in a magnetic field. "Impossible, impossible, impossible." The bridge crew watched in alarm as their commanding officer began what could only be described as the galaxy's most dramatic meltdown. Glixnorp's mandibles were clicking so rapidly they sounded like an angry typewriter, and his purple skin had shifted to an alarming shade of neon pink. "Sir, perhaps we should," Blurpington began. "No," Glixnorp screamed, pressing his face tentacles against the view screen. "Do you know what happened to the crystalloids when we used setting 3? 3. They surrendered in 1.8 seconds. The Vapor Collective didn't even wait for us to fire. They heard about our reputation and surrendered via space mail. The memories came flooding back with the force of a cosmic tsunami. The Thoraxian Empire, proud warrior race of the Andromeda sector, had lasted exactly 4 seconds before their emperor was begging for mercy and offering tribute. The silicon-based crunchlings had actually started crying before the pain rays even reached them, apparently deciding that anticipation was worse than the real thing. "The tentacled philosophers of Rigel 7, Glixnorp whispered, his voice taking on the hollow tone of a broken being, lasted 2.3 seconds before they were writing surrender sonnets. Surrender sonnets. On the view screen, the situation was getting worse. Much worse. The humans weren't just enduring the pain rays anymore. They were approaching the ship. Sir?" Blurpington's voice had climbed several octaves. "The humans are moving toward us." Jake Morrison was indeed walking toward the inevitable victory, and he was carrying a toolbox. Behind him, Dr. Blackwood was taking readings with some kind of scientific instrument, and Lisa Hartwell was following with her camera crew, still conducting interviews while being systematically tortured. Jake knocked on the ship's hull with his wrench. The metallic clang echoed through the bridge like a death knell. "Hey," Jake called out, "your pain machine thing seems to be broken. You want me to take a look? I fix stuff for a living." The bridge crew collectively whimpered. Several junior officers had started writing what appeared to be their last wills and testaments. "He wants to fix our weapons," Blurpington whimpered. "He thinks they're broken because they're not causing enough pain." Dr. Blackwood had apparently found some kind of intercom system because her voice suddenly filled the bridge with cheerful scientific enthusiasm. Hello there, Dr. Maya Blackwood, University of Chicago. I have to say your pain induction technology is absolutely fascinating. Though I think there might be a calibration issue. Calibration issue? Glixnorp repeated in a voice that suggested his sanity had packed its bags and left for vacation. Oh yes. Dr. Blackwood continued happily. You see, human pain tolerance is remarkably high due to evolutionary factors. We're descended from persistence hunters who had to ignore injuries while chasing prey for hours. Plus, we regularly engage in activities that cause deliberate pain for recreation. We call it exercise. And don't get me started on childbirth statistics. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of Glixnorp's quiet sobbing. Furthermore, Doctor. Blackwood's voice carried on with academic delight. Humans have been dealing with chronic pain for millennia. Arthritis, migraines, stubbed toes, sitting in uncomfortable chairs during meetings. Your average human experiences more daily discomfort than most species could handle in a lifetime. Lieutenant Blurpington was now curled in a corner, rocking back and forth. 300 years, he whispered. 300 years of conquest. And we've been targeting the wrong biological systems the entire time. Jake's voice came through the intercom again. Also, I gotta ask, is this supposed to be some kind of warming system? Because if you're trying to make a weapon, you might want to add some actual, damage. Right now, it's just really nice on my lower back where I pulled a muscle yesterday. Glixnorp stared at the tactical display showing their devastating weapons being described as therapeutic by their targets. His entire worldview, his civilization's entire military doctrine, everything he'd built his career on, was crumbling faster than a house made of space crackers. We've made a terrible mistake, he whispered. What happened next would go down in galactic history as the moment when humanity accidentally became the most terrifying species in the known universe. Jake Morrison, armed with nothing but curiosity and a complete lack of proper xenobiological protocols, had somehow managed to open an access panel on the side of the ship. The fact that he'd done this while still being hit by maximum intensity pain rays only added to the crew's mounting horror. Oh wow, look at all this fancy stuff. Jake called out, his voice echoing through the ship's corridors as he poked around the alien technology with the enthusiasm of a child in a candy store. Hey, what's this button do? No. Glixnorp screamed, but it was too late. Jake had pressed what appeared to be a bright red button labeled in Blorban script as Emergency Atmospheric Purge. Fortunately for everyone involved, it turned out to be the ship's equivalent of a doorbell. Unfortunately for the Blorbans, it produced a sound roughly equivalent to a mildly annoyed cow. The effect on the bridge crew was immediate and devastating. Lieutenant Blurpington collapsed to the floor, writhing in agony. The 3 junior officers started weeping openly. Ensign Quarble began making sounds that suggested his soul was trying to escape through his eye stalks. It hurts. Blurpington wailed. It hurts so much. Make it stop. Dr. Blackwood, who had followed Jake into the ship with her scientific instruments, paused in her readings. Oh my, she said, looking genuinely concerned. Are you folks okay? That was just a simple auditory alert. Simple? Glixnorp gasped, his voice barely a whisper. That noise was like having our pain receptors scrubbed with cosmic sandpaper. The humans exchanged glances. Jake scratched his head, accidentally knocking his hard hat against a low-hanging alien conduit. The metallic clang sent half the bridge crew into convulsions. Wait a minute, Dr. Blackwood said, her scientific mind racing. If that tiny sound causes you distress, then your pain tolerance must be incredibly low, lower than we thought possible for a spacefaring species. She pulled out a notebook and accidentally gave herself a paper cut on the edge. It was the tiniest possible injury, barely visible to the naked eye, but the drop of blood that formed sent the nearest Blorban into immediate cardiac arrest. Oh no! Dr. Blackwood exclaimed, rushing to help. I'm so sorry. Here, let me. Don't touch me. The alien shrieked. The sight of your injury is causing sympathetic pain responses throughout my entire nervous system. Lisa Hartwell, who had been broadcasting live throughout this entire exchange, turned to her camera with the expression of someone who had just stumbled onto the story of the century. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying that special tone reserved for breaking news, "what we're witnessing here appears to be a complete reversal of expectations. These aliens, who arrived with what they claimed were pain-inducing weapons, seem to have a pain tolerance lower than a newborn kitten." The camera panned to show Jake casually examining alien equipment while the crew cowered in terror. Every time he touched something, moved something, or even looked at something too intently, the aliens would flinch as if they'd been struck by lightning. "This is fascinating," Dr. Blackwood was saying, completely oblivious to the trauma she was causing. "Your species must have evolved in an environment completely free of discomfort. No predators, no environmental hazards, no stubbed toes." "What's a stubbed toe?" Glixnorp asked weakly. Jake helpfully demonstrated by gently tapping his foot against a nearby wall panel. The sound alone caused 3 more aliens to faint. "That's nothing," Jake said cheerfully. "You should see what happens when you step on a kid's toy in the dark. Now that's pain." The bridge crew was now huddled in a corner, trembling like leaves in a cosmic hurricane. The thought of stepping on a child's toy in darkness was apparently so horrifying to them that several had started writing farewell messages to their families. Meanwhile, Lisa's live broadcast was being picked up by communication satellites and transmitted across the galaxy. On distant worlds, alien civilizations were watching in real time as humans casually tortured their would-be conquerors simply by existing near them. "In breaking news," Lisa continued, "it appears that humanity has accidentally achieved galactic dominance through the simple act of having a normal pain tolerance. We'll continue our coverage of this developing story, but first, let's go to weather. Bob, how's it looking out there?" "Well, Lisa," came Bob's voice over the radio, "it's a beautiful day in Chicago, perfect for accidentally becoming the most feared species in the galaxy." Dr. Blackwood was now taking detailed notes, while the aliens whimpered softly in the background. "This is remarkable. Your entire military strategy was based on the assumption that other species share your hypersensitivity to discomfort. It's like trying to conquer Earth with feathered dusters." Jake found another button and looked at it thoughtfully. "Hey, what about this one?" The collective scream from the alien crew could be heard 3 blocks away. Somewhere in the depths of space, Admiral Zephyron was enjoying a perfectly pleasant cup of Blorban tea when his communications console lit up like a disco ball, having a seizure. The emergency frequency was broadcasting a signal so panicked it was causing interference with nearby star systems. "Admiral," came Glixnorp's voice, though it was barely recognizable through the hysteria. "Emergency evacuation required. The humans are monsters." Admiral Zephyron nearly choked on his tea. In 3 centuries of conquest, he'd never heard that particular combination of words from any of his commanders. "Commander Glixnorp, please clarify. Are the humans deploying advanced weaponry?" "Worse," Glixnorp shrieked. "They're being helpful. One of them offered to fix our equipment. Another one smiled at Ensign Quarble, and he's been unconscious for 20 minutes. Through the static, Admiral Zephyron could hear what sounded like humans cheerfully discussing lunch plans, while his elite invasion force whimpered in the background. The impossibility of the situation made his 3 hearts skip several beats. "Sir," came Lieutenant Blurpington's trembling voice over the comm, requesting immediate extraction. "The humans have discovered our pain sensitivity. They keep doing normal human things, and it's causing mass casualties." Admiral Zephyron's eye stalks went rigid. In all his years of military service, he'd never heard of a species capable of causing casualties through normal behavior. These humans weren't just dangerous, they were apocalyptic. "All units, retreat immediately," he commanded, his voice carrying across the Blorban fleet. "Code Black evacuation. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage the humans." Back on Earth, the inevitable victory was powering up its engines with the desperate urgency of a ship fleeing the heat death of the universe. Warning lights flashed, sirens wailed, and the pain ray systems were mercifully shutting down as all power was diverted to escape velocity. Jake Morrison looked up from where he'd been examining an interesting piece of alien metal. "Oh, you folks leaving already? That's too bad. We were just getting to know each other." The gathered crowd of humans, who had spent the last hour being subjected to weapons-grade torture while treating it like a minor inconvenience, began waving cheerfully at the departing ship. Children held up hand-drawn pictures they'd made of the aliens. Someone had brought a Welcome to Earth banner. "Thanks for the free tanning session," Jake called out, cupping his hands around his mouth. "Come back anytime. Maybe next time bring some snacks." Dr. Blackwood was frantically taking final readings as the ship lifted off. "Fascinating," she shouted over the engine noise. "Their propulsion system appears to be powered by crystallized fear. How wonderfully efficient." Lisa Hartwell, still broadcasting live, turned to her camera one final time. And there you have it, folks. Chicago's brief but memorable first contact with alien life comes to an end. The visitors appear to be leaving in quite a hurry, though they never did explain what they wanted. As the inevitable victory disappeared into the atmosphere, trailing what appeared to be the alien equivalent of panicked screaming, the humans in the park began to disperse. The hot dog vendor packed up his cart, counting his surprisingly good profits. The elderly woman went back to feeding her pigeons. Jake picked up his lunchbox and headed back to the construction site. "Well," said Dr. Blackwood, checking her watch, "that was educational. I should probably get back to the museum. These readings won't analyze themselves." And with that, humanity returned to its daily routine, completely unaware that they had just become the most feared species in galactic history through the simple act of having a normal pain tolerance. Admiral Zephyron's fleet was already jumping to hyperspace, leaving behind a species that had accidentally conquered the galaxy by being insufficiently impressed with torture. Within hours of Lisa Hartwell's broadcast, the galaxy was buzzing with news of the indestructible humans. The footage of Jake Morrison casually enduring maximum intensity pain rays while discussing sandwich preferences had spread faster than a cosmic plague, transmitted from species to species with the kind of horrified fascination usually reserved for natural disasters. On the crystalline homeworld of Vortex Prime, High Chancellor Shimmerstone called an emergency session of their invasion planning committee. The assembled generals watched the Earth footage in stunned silence as humans treated their worst nightmare as a minor inconvenience. "Motion to cancel Operation Crystal Conquest," Shimmerstone announced, his voice echoing through the chamber like breaking glass. "All in favor of never, ever going near the humans." The vote was unanimous. Within minutes, the Vortaxian armada was redirecting to literally anywhere else in the universe. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds. The Nebuloid Collective, who had been planning their own Earth invasion for 6 months, watched the footage and immediately voted to take up peaceful farming instead. The Thoraxian Empire, those self-proclaimed masters of warfare, declared a galactic holiday in honor of not being human. At the emergency session of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Florbnik of the Gelatinous Consortium stood before the assembled representatives with all the dignity of someone who had just realized they were utterly outclassed by a species that considered stubbed toes a minor annoyance. "Honored colleagues," Florbnik began, his translucent form quivering with barely contained terror, "I move that we declare the Sol system, specifically the third planet known as Earth, a permanent no-fly zone. Classification, apocalyptic nightmare fuel." "Seconded," came shouts from across the chamber, all in favor of pretending humans don't exist and hoping they never discover space travel. The vote was so unanimous it caused a small earthquake on the council station. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity remained blissfully unaware that they had accidentally become the galactic equivalent of a cosmic horror story. Dr. Maya Blackwood was in her office at the University of Chicago, putting the finishing touches on what would become the most terrifying scientific paper in galactic history. A comparative pain tolerance across species, an analysis of human durability in extraterrestrial context. She typed cheerfully, or completely unaware that her academic work was about to become required reading in alien military academies as a manual on species to avoid at all costs. The paper included helpful charts comparing human pain thresholds to alien species, detailed analysis of evolutionary factors that made humans essentially immune to torture, and a cheerful conclusion suggesting that humans would make excellent galactic ambassadors due to their resilience. When the paper was accidentally intercepted by alien communications networks, it caused 3 separate species to immediately enter voluntary extinction programs. Back at the construction site, Jake Morrison had been promoted to foreman, largely because his boss figured anyone who could conduct casual conversation while being tortured by aliens probably had excellent management potential. Jake had also been allowed to keep a small piece of the alien pain ray device that had broken off during their retreat. He kept it on his desk as a paperweight, occasionally using it to warm up his coffee. His coworkers found this mildly impressive, though not nearly as impressive as the time he'd worked a full shift with food poisoning. "Hey, Jake," called his assistant. "Tommy, what's that thing do again?" "Oh, this?" Jake said, picking up the alien device. "It's some kind of heating element." The aliens said it was a weapon, but I think they were just confused. "Nice folks, though. Hope they come back sometime." Across the galaxy, 17 species simultaneously shuddered for reasons they couldn't explain. 6 months later, the new galactic order had established itself with all the subtlety of a cosmic bureaucracy, having an existential crisis. Earth's mailboxes were overflowing with packages from alien civilizations, each one more desperately apologetic than the last. The crystalloid empire sent monthly shipments of their finest gems with notes reading, "Please don't hurt us." The Vapor Collective had started sending atmospheric samples of their most pleasant-smelling gases, apparently hoping that good odors would somehow protect them from human wrath. The Thoraxians, those former masters of warfare, now sent weekly fruit baskets with cards signed "Your humble and terrified servants." Dr. Blackwood had become something of a celebrity in the xenobiology community, though she remained cheerfully oblivious to the fact that her research paper was now being used as a threat assessment document by every major galactic power. She'd received offers to speak at conferences across the galaxy, all of which politely requested that she attend via hologram to avoid causing mass casualties through her mere presence. "Isn't it wonderful how friendly everyone's become?" she mentioned to Jake during one of their regular coffee meetings at the spot where the alien ship had landed. The city had installed a small plaque commemorating Chicago's first peaceful alien contact, which had caused several galactic diplomats to faint when they read about it. Jake nodded, sipping his coffee from a mug that had been warming on his alien device turned paperweight. "Yeah, though I still don't understand why they keep sending all this free stuff. Not that I'm complaining. That anti-gravity fruit from the Thoraxians makes great smoothies." Meanwhile, in a distant corner of the galaxy, former Commander Glixnorp sat at his new desk job in the Blorban Department of Galactic Safety Regulations, was filing incident reports and trying very hard not to think about Earth. His therapy sessions were going well, though he still couldn't hear the word helpful without breaking into a cold sweat. His current assignment involved reviewing applications for planet visitation permits, and he took great satisfaction in stamping absolutely not on any request that involved the Sol system. His desk drawer was filled with rubber stamps reading "Denied, Apocalyptic Death World," and "Rejected, Contains Humans." But across the galaxy, in the icy reaches of the frigid nebula, the HFY Empire was preparing for what they were certain would be their moment of glory. Unlike those pathetic pain-obsessed Blorbans, the cryophages had perfected the art of conquest through temperature control. "Those soft, warm-blooded humans won't last 5 minutes against our absolute zero cannons," declared General Frostbite, his ice crystal carapace glinting with confidence. "We've conquered 17 hot world species with this technology. These humans will be frozen solid before they can even scream." The cryophage fleet descended toward Earth with the kind of arrogant certainty that the galaxy had learned to associate with impending catastrophe. They chose Alaska as their landing site, reasoning that the cold environment would give them a tactical advantage. The temperature weapons activated with a satisfying hum, dropping the local air temperature to levels that should have flash-frozen any carbon-based life form instantly. The cryophages waited for the inevitable sounds of panic and surrender. Instead, they heard something that would haunt their nightmares for generations to come. "Oh wow, this is nice," came a cheerful voice from a nearby ice fishing hut. "It's like air conditioning. Hey Martha, come feel this. It's better than our freezer at home." An elderly human couple emerged from the hut, wearing what appeared to be recreational cold weather gear, and began walking directly toward the cryophage ship while their breath formed pleasant little clouds in the supercooled air. "Thanks, aliens," the man called out. "This is perfect weather for ice fishing. You folks want to try? I got extra poles." The cryophage crew stared in horror as more humans began emerging from various cold weather activities, all expressing delight at the improved temperature control. Some were asking if the aliens provided home installation services. General Frostbite's scream of frustrated disbelief echoed across three-star systems, joining the growing chorus of alien despair that had become the galaxy's newest form of background radiation. And in Chicago, Jake Morrison looked up from his afternoon coffee and smiled. "Sounds like we're getting more visitors," he said cheerfully. "I should probably make a welcome sign."